Hey guys, this is Inverse, and you are watching a Company of Heroes first-person video cast. This is going to be a game on retail on the map Samoa against a level 12 American opponent who goes by the name Porpoise, I believe. I can't really see. My game is my screen is a little bit low on the resolution right now, but anyways, this is going to be my first retail first-person video cast. It is, I'd say it's about an average game. Both sides, we both make some pretty big mistakes and some smaller mistakes. It's definitely not my best game, but I did want to post a game sooner rather than later, and also YouTube finally lifted my upload limit restrictions, so I wanted to test that out. I've heard it's like 4 hours or something now and like 20 gigabytes, so I should easily be under that. So anyways, I am going to be playing Freestyler's build. If anyone who isn't familiar with Freestyler, he is a retail Company of Heroes expert, top 10-ish with all 4 factions probably. His main retail leaderboard account is PE level 10 at one weekend, I think. It might be level 20, I can't really remember. There was some stat hacker that used USA level 20 at one weekend, but that's not him, some other guy. Anyways, you'll see I am putting wire around my plus 10, which is something I try to do every game. I know some people don't like to do it. I just find it gives your opponent one more thing to worry about. He has to make sure he's sending an engineer over there, and that means one less flamer flanking you, which flamers can really be a pain, especially on Samoa, because there's a ton of green cover, so flamers do that extra damage, and there's a lot of buildings. Of course, in my opinion, Samoa, a very American favored map, thanks to, of course, those buildings on the one hand, and on the other hand, there's just a lot of green cover, which means if you can't get the middle, you're in a lot of trouble as Wehrmacht. And my opponent is starting, probably opened with a Jeep, sent it right to my field. It was a good idea. I'm trying to stall him right now just by going around the hedge one way, going around the other way. I think I actually don't pay attention to him, and then I'm going to issue some capping orders, and then, oh no, he's still there, so I'm going to retreat out right there. It's a lot easier to run around bikes with engineers than it is to run around Jeeps with pioneers, and the reason for this is Jeeps, of course, can reverse, bikes can't, and engineers have 3 men, whereas pioneers only have 2, and pioneers are very, very fragile. And on top of that, pioneers don't get free healing like they don't get free healing like engineers do in the triage center. I'm going to be laying the wire again. The reason I started that second piece of wire at the bottom and had to go to the top is because the pioneers will start building at the first place, at the first issue, or the first build order you issued, and end at the last one. I want them to end closer to the top part of the map because I want them to be capping the plus 10 munitions at the very, very top of the map after they're done with their building. So right here, my opponent, lucky for me, he didn't actually reverse his Jeep, but he is being smart, and he's putting it up against the back of this little lake here, or not a lake, little river. And the reason he's doing this is because it's going to make it a lot harder for me to flank and to get around him. See, there's rifles going up top, so I'm going to put myself in green cover, and my game started like completely bugging out. Actually, I think I retreated a squad I didn't want to retreat, maybe not, but I do manage to actually eventually get him out, and my MG is on the field. As I was saying earlier, Freestyler's build, I tend to go 2 Volks, MG, Volks, Medic Bunker, and then Tier 2 on Samoa. You want a lot of Volks because MGs are just so easy to flank, and bars are just so powerful, and it is fairly safe for your opponent to go fast bars on Samoa, especially if he combos them with flamers, because you're going to take a whole heck of a lot of damage. What I did right there, I was trying to stall his rifles as much as possible so my MG could get in position, and the reason I'm facing my MG down instead of up to the rifles is because I know as long as I either get in cover before he does or take the first shot, he's capping, so I'll definitely take the first shot with those Volks. He is not going to be able to beat my Volks with his rifle squads, so I set up my MG to try to defend against a flank, because a good player is probably going to reinforce his squads, or at least support them when he sees he could probably outnumber you. He is, however, harassing. I'm going to recap the right hand side, put my MG in the building just to make it a little bit more resilient. I'm hoping I'll have the reaction time to get him out of there if any flamers, or if he actually happens to tech 2 grenades. I'm also getting my medic bunker up, and I don't think I'm teching 2 tier 2 yet. And there's a rifle squad, but yep, he's going to retreat the moment he sees my MG. He actually could have circled my MG, but I did have Volks in support, and I would have done a lot of damage to him, especially because he would have been moving, so he would have been doing less. He would have had less accuracy. I would have been stationary in yellow cover and would have done a lot more damage. Am I going to get tier 2? I think I've already teched to tier 2. Actually, probably not yet. I'm going to take my MG out of the building now. Yep. Good thing you always want to do when you take units out of buildings, don't just hit the unload button. Hit tab to select the actual unit, and then select a location to unload the unit at. You especially want to do this when you're around enemy units, because if you just exit a building and your squad decides, hey, I'm going to exit right in front of the enemy, that's not really good for you. What you want to do is, if you choose the specific location, your unit is going to leave from the closest door, and a lot of buildings have more than one door. There's the building on a lot of the buildings on Small have multiple doors as well, but there's a building on Langra and a building on Angleville that both very important to do this. I saw him flanking up with his Jeep, so I toss my Pyos into green cover. If he focuses on my MG, my Pyos are going to do decent damage from short range, and they're going to force him off long enough for me to get my Volks into position, which is what I did. I'm also recapping the top side. It's a good idea to send a Pioneer to cap around if your opponent is trying to push you off in the middle, laying a mine down. Going to hopefully catch that Jeep, and I am probably going to get tier 2. I'm actually building another Pioneer, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want the Pioneers on the field right now. That actually backfired. I should have canceled the Pioneer I just started building right there when I was forced to retreat the Pioneer up top. But I wanted the Pioneer down in the middle to keep laying mines, and I wanted another Pioneer to build the Krieg barracks. So that's why I built another one. I'm also laying wire down, you saw, near the lake across from my opponent's base. The reason I'm doing this, it just narrows down his options. Samoa, very, very easy to flank, very difficult to defend against flanks, because there's so many different locations your opponent can go through. I'm going to back up those Pioneers because, hey, he has a rifle squad, and Pioneers versus rifle squad isn't really going to work very well for me. I am, however, going to put that MG in that building. That's a tough building to use because the building near the +5, the smaller one, usually blocks sight from that one building, and that's not really what you want when you are trying to suppress a squad. Of course, I did get lucky right here, and I kind of right there, or I thought for a second, I'm also trying to chase him down on retreat, hopefully do a bit more damage. I thought because his rifles were grouping up so much that he was trying to lay mines. That's a pretty telltale sign of infantry company. And yep, there we go, he actually was laying a mine, so I do know my opponent is infantry company right now, and that's pretty standard. The 90% of the time you are going to play against American players, and they're going to go infantry company because it's really the most versatile company. Armor is extremely weak, especially because the pack is extremely powerful in retail right now. Hopefully, well, that will be fixed in the beta. It is fixed in the beta, and it will hopefully be fixed when that patch releases. But anyways, armor is very, very weak, and airborne is good against Panzer Elite if you want to abuse strafe, and I don't really like to abuse strafe, and not really so good against Wehrmacht because all they have to do is get Vet 2 and build a medic bunker. You're going to give them a ton of free Grens, and then once they get Vet 2, you're not going to be able to do any damage to the Grens. You might be able to kill some Volks, maybe a sniper, but that's just going to be medic bunker food. And I'm going to come back as grenadiers. He's going to get vet 3, and you're going to be completely screwed. I do, however, go armor company A, most games against Panzer Elite, because fast deployment is so powerful, getting fast M8s on the field, and Calliopes are ridiculously strong against Panzer Elite blobs late game. Going to be laying some more mines. Mines are very, very crucial in the center part of Samoa, just because there's a lot of roads, so vehicles are going to pass through there very nicely. You're going to know pretty much exactly where your opponent's going to be walking. He has, my opponent has managed to push me off of the right-hand side and also recap the left-hand side while I was preoccupied with fighting off his forces. My medic bunker, however, almost regaining 1 squad, which medic bunkers really... You can build one and then lose it and build another one, and if you get 1 squad out of it, you're still in pretty good shape. You get your manpower investment back, you lose a bit of munitions, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, although Wehrmacht is a very munitions-heavy race, there are worse things you could be losing. Manpower a lot more valuable than munitions, especially late game. I tend to not like to rebuild my medic bunkers if I lose them right away. I tend not to try to camp around medic bunkers too often either. However, on Samoa, it's a little difficult to avoid that. I am in Tier 2. I believe I will tech to Tier 3 eventually this game. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 as Wehrmacht is incredibly powerful. A pack and a Shrek squad is pretty much all you need. I do see he has an M8 coming down. He's crushing my wire. That made me sad. But I am going to move my pack back preemptively, and the reason for this is I'm expecting him to try to base rush me. I already do have 1 pack, and I won't be building another one, so I'm not too worried about a mine at my Krieg barracks. But he actually stumps me because he's not base rushing me, even though he did push off that 1 squad. So I'm going to keep moving my pack up because I'm still paranoid. He also got bars. So this was very, very interesting. The one thing about Samoa is no matter what you do, unless you completely dominate as Wehrmacht, you're not going to be able to deny very much fuel. That means a +10 and potentially a +18 if your opponent OPs a point. Fuel point. Whereas you are going to get harassed a whole heck of a lot because that is the strength of the American faction. Just to harass. Up top, I should be laying some sandbags. Yeah, I'm going to lay some sandbags right there. Usually you want to lay wire on the opponent's side of the sandbags so your opponent can't use them against you. However, there is the MG blocking my opponent's access to those sandbags, and it's so close to my base that I'm not even going to bother putting wire on the other side. That's a great place for sandbags. If your opponent is harassing you a lot, you really want some back there. It keeps you in range of your fuel points, allows you to fend off a lot of harassment, which is what you're going to see right now. He's actually going to have to retreat, and that lets me recap the fuel, and I'm also going to hit a mine down to 4 men with almost no health. That sucks. That is the main problem with Wehrmacht mid-game, is the fact that it's just so freaking expensive to heal your units because you don't get, well, you get moderate passive regeneration with Vet 1 infantry, which I will be getting fairly soon, I believe, but it's really not that much, especially when you consider the fact that Americans have to invest 200 manpower and 20 fuel, and they get pretty much free healing for the rest of the game. Always get your triage center as early as possible, saving resources, all that fun stuff. My opponent now has 2 M8s on the field, and now I'm getting a little worried. I only have 1 pack. I don't have the munitions for a Shrek just because I have been spending my munitions a lot on mines. And I believe I am going to try to get a 2nd pack on the field, and the reason for this is I just don't feel comfortable right now using my mines and my soul pack to defend against this M8 harassment. Lucky for me, my opponent has just been leaving 1, I'm assuming, up at the top +10 munitions point, which is nice. I do have Vet 1 infantry, and I will be getting tier 3 out right now. And do I have a second pack yet? No, I think I'm going to build a second pack. But as you can see, the sandbags really paying for themselves right now. My opponent down to, I think, 1 man on that rifle squad. He did manage to decap it. However, I do have a decent banked fuel supply right now. If you can see down at the bottom, 300 manpower, 70 fuel. That's enough for 2 Pumas. And by that time, I should have a lot more freedom to keep my resource points. He is, however, harassing me back up top. I am going to be able to cap it and then get the heck out of there, which is good. My opponent really missed an opportunity to harass up top. Right here, Pack's just so powerful, two-shotting the M8. That will be changed in the new patch. They will take 3 shots to kill M8s, which is how it really should be. I'm canceling the pack that I was building, and the reason I'm doing that is because I now have tier 3 out, and he only has 1 pack, or not 1 pack, 1 M8, sorry, on the field. I'm feeling a lot better about my AT situation, so I'm going to instead get a Puma a lot quicker and hopefully use the Puma to give myself a bit more support against his infantry. Big flank coming down in the middle. I actually thought that squad was going to go up, and I thought he was just going to camp on my +10 fuel. I did, however, guess wrong. That's why the 2 squads were up top. He is artying my bunker. Never use off-map artillery on bunkers. There's so many more cost-effective ways to kill bunkers. You can use flamers after a flank. Demo charges are extremely cheap, especially mid-game when you don't really have too much use for fuel, especially if, as an American player, you went for motor pool units. You don't really have too much use for fuel mid and late game, unless of course you tech to a tank depot. So as you can see, the artillery strike did about 3/4 damage. I'm, however, going to be able to repair it, getting Vet 1 on my vehicles. Vet 1 for anything you have on the field is really good, just because I think Vet 1 on vehicles gives Pumas a perceived accuracy bonus when they're moving, which is extremely powerful, because as long as you keep your Pumas on the move, they're a lot more difficult to hit. Another reason Infantry Company is so popular is because Pumas are so popular, and paratroopers are very bad against Pumas. Paratroopers do not hit very often, and when they miss, they phase through, whereas with bazookas, if the game calculates a miss, you still have a chance. Artillery falling, and I actually had no idea. I didn't see any smoke, and I didn't hear anything. I was so confused right there. Anyways, the reason Grenadiers reform free grunts. The reason wow, I completely lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, paratroopers. Reason bazookas are better than paras against Pumas is because even if you register a miss with bazookas, you have a chance to hit, because if the spread isn't too wide and your bazooka actually contacts the Puma's hitbox, it'll do damage, whereas the paratroopers, recoilless rifles, they're just going to go right through the Pumas, unfortunately. Now, I did anticipate him using his M8 like he'd been doing all earlier in the game and harassing. He's also sending a rifle squad, maybe even 2, I can't remember, but I do have a pack up there, which is what I was trying to do. I was trying to lure him out, however, he was pretty smart, and he has his M8 behind the hedge right there, so I can't really do anything. I'm ordering attacks, and it's not doing anything. I do have minesweepers in the middle, and I am trying to react to whatever he is doing, laying some mines. Good place for mines. Any place with a choke is really a good place for a mine. My opponent, doing a good job pushing me off on the left. I, however, have been able to recap the entirety of the right side. I'm floating a little bit right now, which I should be cutting down on, but I do believe I'll be getting getting a shug. grabbing a Stug just in case my opponent gets any more M8s, and just in case he happens to decide to go for tank depot units. Still spamming mines. Mines extremely powerful. I always want to spam as much as possible. Trying to get all my guys reinforced. Going to be capping around. I don't think my opponent actually realized this engineer was in my base until it was dead. And it didn't even manage to decap it, so that was too bad. I do have a Minesweeper, I think I mentioned that earlier. Minesweeper is very, very good if you're going any sort of vehicle tech. You see I did find a mine right there. Only problem is I do believe Minesweepers take additional damage while removing mines. However, I did manage to get that one away and then retreat as soon as possible. Another thing to note, I think I've mentioned this in a previous cast, but if you reveal a mine with a Minesweeper and can't defuse it, or yeah, I guess you'd say you can't defuse it, you can attack it with other units. Pumas are especially good at this because they have high accuracy against the, or at least it seems like they have a high accuracy against the mines, and do enough damage that it only takes 1 or 2 bullets to actually blow the mine up. So just something to keep in mind. My Stug is on the field. I should be getting Vet 1 for my tanks. I actually misstep a little bit right here. His M8 does hit a mine, but I don't think it actually does too much damage. I do have 2 Pumas. I'm going to be moving my infantry in, but he is focusing my pack, which is very smart of him, because once my pack goes down, he will have a lot more free reign with his vehicles. He actually does have a Sherman, which kind of made me nervous. I'm going to, I think artillery? Drop artillery? Yes, he dropped artillery. And I thought it was artillery on his own guy for some reason, but it was actually artillery on my good quality infantry. And I almost lost a war squad. But they got away. And my Puma is getting hit by the artillery, which is too bad. The good thing about artillery in Retail Company of Heroes, though, is it doesn't completely destroy everything it touches. You can't kill a King Tiger just by dropping 1 artillery barrage on it, which is very, very refreshing. Anyways, I am floating again. I should be getting Vet 2 on my infantry just because I have a lot of Grens. And yep, there we go, Vet 2 right there. My medic bunker is still up. My opponent, I mean, I haven't really been defending my medic bunker at all. My MG has just been sitting in that building, which is kind of bad unit control for me. I really shouldn't have just left that MG in there, and I actually think I'm going to take it out right now because I realize, hey, you're not doing anything in there, so I'm going to put you to better use at the front. And if you didn't notice, a long time ago, I did go Terror. Terror is a good use. Usually you want to wait to see what your opponent is doing before you select a doctrine or a company. Terror, however, is pretty safe of a bet. You can do tier 2 with it, you can do tier 3 with it, you can do tier 2, tier 4 with it, you can do tier 2 Ren spam with it. It's really a versatile doctrine, and it's very powerful early in the game, which is why you probably want to pick it early if you think you're going to have any use for it, because Zeal, if you people coming from Company of Heroes Online know of the Terror ability Inspired Zeal, it is a passive version of Inspired Zeal, or rather Inspired Zeal is an active version of the passive Terror Zeal from Retail, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but I have heard from Colaris, who is a very, very reliable source, especially when it comes to Company of Heroes statistics, that Inspired Zeal actually doesn't have the same bonuses as regular Zeal. I don't know what that Ren was doing right there, but Inspired Zeal does not have the same bonuses as the passive Zeal from Retail, and is actually worse off because of that, which is interesting and slightly strange because the Company of Heroes Online Zeal has a cooldown, which is, you'd assume it'd be better because of that. But anyways, I do have my opponent fairly well contained right now. You can see I was able to push him off mid-game, and that's really the crucial time because Americans are extremely powerful early game, and if you don't put them in check and they get a lot of rifle veterancy, they tech up, they get a fast M8, and they do a lot of damage with that M8, you can find yourself in a world of hurt. Of course, right now, not too much vet on my opponent's rifles. I do think he has a... No, probably doesn't have a howitzer yet. which howitzer is another one of the reasons why it is so popular to go infantry in this patch. However, terror, another reason to go terror is because they have probably the best and most cost-effective way to counter the howitzer in the Firestorm. And the reason for this is the Firestorm is 160 munitions in retail Company of Heroes. That is up from the 145 in Company of Heroes Online. However, it does one-shot howitzers. Of course, howitzers are a lot more viable in retail than they are in Company of Heroes Online because you don't have flares and all that lame stuff. You don't have full-speed stormtroopers to go in and completely take it out in 2 seconds. I'm going to Faust this Jeep because Jeeps are annoying even late game, and one Faust will do about 80 or 90% damage to a Jeep. So if you take a few shots at it and Faust it, you'll either kill it or you'll give it a damaged engine, and that's perfectly fine. I'm going to no, I thought I was going to salvage. Yep, I am going to queue up a salvage order. Salvaging always a good idea. Always want to salvage as much as possible. Wehrmacht is an extremely munitions-heavy race. You need all the munitions you can handle, and the best way to get that, you get a ton of munitions from salvaging. I am actually trying to get mines up, but I was kind of late to the party there, and my opponent does have a lot of rifle squads. Actually, probably sending his entire force down to the bottom, which isn't too dumb of him because I do have the top pretty much locked down. I'm bringing my Pumas down to the bottom, and he killed my Volk squad, which made me sad. I'm also a little worried about this pack right here, but I do have an MG up in support. Always a good idea to support your weapons teams, especially support your packs. He's actually dropping Artie, and I realized this, but I kept pressing the wrong button, and I lost my MG, which was too bad. Because I am using grid keys in Retail Company of Heroes, which means if you look in the bottom right and you see the 3x4 grid of commands. With grid keys, though, that grid corresponds to the top or the left-hand side grid of keys, the Q to R, down to Z, and then across to V. And it just, in my opinion, makes things a lot easier. It standardizes controls across both factions, so you don't need to worry about different names for both factions, and it's just personally an easier way to play. I've used it ever since I found it, and it was very difficult going back in Company of Heroes Online to regular hotkeys, but the grid key retreat button is R, not T, and the reinforce button is Y instead of R. And I was probably mashing on T thinking, why the heck aren't my dudes retreating? And in fact, I was pressing the wrong button. So at this point, my opponent just kind of sitting back, doesn't really have much to do. He does have a tank depot, and he does have tank depot tech, including an M10, which I just heard shoot down on the bottom, trying to take out a Puma. I am, however, probably going to, I'm trying to get this one Puma over into friendly territory so I can upgun it. An upgun Puma along with a pack, is a dead M10. An upgun Puma going solo against an M10 can actually hold its own, especially when it's vetted. Right now I have vet 2 on my vehicles. I also have vet 2 on my infantry, and vet 2 on infantry of course gives elite armor in retail. And I do now hear my opponent's howitzer shoot, so I'm trying to split my grens because I figure he's going to probably howitzer the spot I was just standing at, because I did have 2 grens there. Turns out he was actually howitzering like something else, I don't even know what it was. It was just a random point. So I was kind of happy. I got out safe. I do have 2 Stugs on the field now, one on both sides. Actually moved kind of right back into that howitzer barrage, which is kind of stupid of me. And instead of going right for a King Tiger, you see I was at 4 CPs. King Tigers do come at 5 CPs in retail. Well, I mean, it's technically 9 CPs, but once you get Propaganda War and Zeal, it will be 5 CPs. My opponent does have Rangers now, and this M10 going to be in a lot of trouble. And the reason I got the Firestorm is to counter the howitzer, because I really do not want to have to deal with that howitzer anymore. The one problem will be spotting for the Firestorm and getting in range of the howitzer to actually see it, because you don't have flare in this game, so you actually have to like move your units around. And I do know he has a mine on the bridge near the one strap point outside of his base that he still controls. You see it on the minimap right there. He does have a mine on that bridge. I saw him planting it a little bit earlier, so I'm not going to be able to go around that way. I am instead probably going to send a Puma down through his bottom resource areas that I can't really harass too much because I don't want to put myself too far out of position. I'll probably send a Puma down there, and it should be able to handle that stuff. More rifles forced to retreat. And VP is ticking down. I have 308. My opponent already down to 123 right now. And dropping at 3 VP increments right now. I'm probably going to get that 2 on my tanks. My opponent barraging the Grens in the building, so I'm going to get him out of there. I'm going to move my pack back as well, and also going to keep my infantry away from the blast, because that would be very, very too bad if they all got destroyed by one artillery shell, and actually move over a little bit too quickly and almost completely lose all my infantry, which was very lucky that I actually missed that one barrage. And yep, Vet 2 on my tanks coming. Vet 2 is good for tanks because Stugs get the MG upgrade. They get an MG, a little MG, like coaxial MG on the side of their gun, which is good against infantry. It doesn't really do much damage, but it does suppress eventually if you don't really... If your opponent's just kind of chilling there and you're picking away at them. I mean, it does decent damage. It's good if your opponent is going a lot of infantry but has already forced you into substantial AT, which is what he did in this case by going for the 2 M8s, the Sherman, and the M10. And my opponent is going to drop without a GG, which is unfortunate, but oh well. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that game. I will be playing some more retail games. I'll be playing some beta games, hopefully retail beta, and I will be casting some Company of Heroes online replays hopefully soon. See you guys later.